Usually when we sit down to open a file for a deep dive, we are looking at a specific event, a moment in time, maybe a week, maybe a month. But today we are looking at a phantom. We are talking about a shadow that hung over the entire state of California for, what, more than a decade?
It's not just the duration, though 12 years is an eternity in criminal terms. It's the evolution. Most criminals, they find a lane and they stay in it. A burglar burgles, a killer kills. Today we are looking at a man who metamorphosed. He started as a voyeur, became a ransacker, escalated to a rapist, and finally a serial killer.
And for decades, the most terrifying part was that nobody knew it was just one man.
That's the absolute key. You had these disparate police departments, Visalia, Sacramento, Orange County, all chasing 3 or 4 different ghosts. The Visalia Ransacker, the East Area Rapist, the original Night Stalker. It took 40 years and a revolution in science to realize they were all the same person.
We are, of course, talking about the Golden State Killer. And the scale of this, I was looking at the numbers in the source material, and they don't even look real. I mean, 13 murders, 50 rapes, 120 burglaries.
Industrial scale. It really is. It creates this, this map of trauma that spans hundreds of miles across the state.
Exactly. And the mission for this deep dive isn't just to recount the horror, because frankly, you can find the timeline on Wikipedia. We want to understand the man inside the monster, Joseph James DeAngelo. How does a police officer, a suburban dad, a guy mowing his lawn, live double life this dark?
And we have to talk about how they caught him, because that is the pivot point for modern criminal justice. He didn't get caught because he slipped up. He got caught because science finally caught up to him.
So let's rewind the clock. We are going back to 1974, Visalia, California. This is, from what I understand, a quiet agricultural town in the San Joaquin Valley. And this is where the training ground theory comes in. Why start here?
Right. Visalia is where DeAngelo learns his craft. But if you look at the police reports from that time, these weren't standard burglaries. If you or I are breaking into a house, we're grabbing the TV, the cash, the jewelry, and we're running.
Speed is the name of the game. Get in, get the goods, get out.
Usually. But the Visalia Ransacker, as they called him, he wasn't interested in speed. He wasn't really interested in money. He was interested in something else. Intimacy. Violation.
The sources mentioned he would bypass cash left right on the counter. Instead, he's taking blue chip stamps. Historic coins.
Single earrings, 1 cufflink.
That's just bizarre. Taking 1 earring makes it worthless. You can't pawn that.
It's not for the pawn shop. It's a souvenir. It's a trophy. By taking 1, he's telling the victim, I have a piece of you. It's about possession. But it goes way beyond just theft. He wasn't just taking things out. He was moving things around inside the home.
Right. The ransacker name wasn't an accident. He was tearing these places apart.
He was scattering women's underwear through the house. He was moving family photos, sometimes placing them face down or in really weird locations. But the most chilling detail from that whole Visalia phase, for me, is the window screens. Police would find the window screens taken off the house and laid out on the beds.
On the bed. Why?
It's a message.
Yeah.
It's him saying, I was here. I was in your most private space. But, tactically, removing the screens also gave him multiple exit points. He was prepping the battlefield, and he was also setting traps.
The warning items. This sounds like something out of a spy novel.
It really does. And it shows this high level of tactical awareness. He would take dishes or bottles and lean them against interior doors, or balance them on door handles.
So if the homeowner wakes up in the middle of the night and opens a door, crash.
Exactly. It's an early warning system.
Yeah.
It tells you this guy isn't some drug addict looking for a quick fix. He is a tactician. He is controlling the environment before the victims even know he's there. And you have to remember, during this time, he's a police officer in the nearby town of Exeter.
That's the detail that just makes your stomach drop. He's wearing a badge by day and wearing a mask by night.
And that duality explains his success. It has to. He knew response times. He knew what prowler calls sounded like on the radio. He knew that if he wore gloves, which he always did, and didn't leave fingerprints, the police in 1974 had very, very little to go on. He knew the gaps in the system because he was part of the system.
But the ransacker phase didn't stay nonviolent forever. And this is a pattern we see in the literature on serial predators, right? The thrill of the burglary starts to fade. They need a higher dose.
It escalated dramatically in September 1975, the Claude Snelling murder. This is just heartbreaking because Snelling was just a normal guy, a journalism professor at the College of the Sequoias. He wakes up at 2 a.m. to strange noises.
And this isn't just a burglary anymore. He goes to the carport and sees a masked man trying to drag his 16-year-old daughter away.
Think about the boldness shift there. I mean, he's gone from stealing coins to attempting a full-on abduction at a family home. Snelling, being a father, doesn't hesitate. He intervenes. He yells at the intruder, and the intruder just shoots him. Twice.
Snelling died saving his daughter.
He did. The intruder then kicked the girl in the face and ran. But he left something behind nearby. Stolen bicycle.
The bike. That becomes a huge signature, doesn't it?
A massive signature. You don't usually associate terrifying serial killers with bicycles. We think of, vans or stalking on foot. But a bike in the suburbs is perfect camouflage. It's silent. You can cut through backyards, drainage ditches, canals. You can outrun a cop on foot, and you can go places a patrol car can't follow.
That makes so much sense. If you're in a car, people might see the license plate. If you're walking, you're slow. A bike makes you a ghost.
Exactly. And Visalia had a lot of open spaces and canals he could use. It was perfect for him.
There was one other incident in Visalia that seems like a real turning point. The McGowan incident.
Yeah, this is the closest he came to getting caught for 40 years. Detective William McGowan is on a stakeout in December of '75. He's hiding in a garage in an area the ransacker frequented. He sees a masked figure. McGowan jumps out, detains him.
And this is where DeAngelo's, his acting skills come in.
Big time. The suspect starts shrieking. He acts terrified. He tears off his mask, though McGowan only got a partial look, and acts like he's surrendering. McGowan hesitates for a split second, probably just confused by the bizarre behavior. And in that second, the suspect pulls a gun with his left hand and fires.
He shot out the flashlight.
Shattered it right in McGowan's face. The glass blinded him, and the ransacker escaped. But this spooked DeAngelo. It had to. He realized the heat in Visalia was way too high. He had almost been killed or captured. So like a virus, he mutated. He moved north.
To Sacramento. And this is where the East Area Rapist, or EAR phase, begins, 1976.
Right. The suburbs of Sacramento, Citrus Heights, Rancho Cordova, these were booming areas. Lots of new construction, lots of canals and trails. Perfect for his bike. And this is where the reign of terror really, really sets in.
When you read the accounts from this time, the fear is just palpable. It wasn't just lock your doors. People were sleeping in shifts. Hardware stores sold out of locks and dowels for sliding doors. Gun sales went through the roof.
Because the nature of the crime shifted completely.
Yeah.
He wasn't just ransacking an empty house anymore. He was hunting people in their beds. And he developed a script, a literal script, that he used over and over and over.
Let's unpack that script, because script implies he practiced it, that it was a performance.
Oh, he absolutely did. It started with stalking.
Yeah.
He wouldn't just pick a house at random that night. He would watch a target for days, maybe weeks. He would call them.
The hang-up calls.
Hundreds of them. He's checking who is home. Is the husband there? What time do they go to sleep? He would sometimes break in days before the attack just to unlock a window or to unload a gun he found in the house.
God, that's terrifying. You have a gun for protection, you reach for it in the dark, and it just clicks empty because he was there on Tuesday while you were at work.
Exactly. He's stripping them of their defenses before they even knew they were in a fight. He would even plant ligatures, shoelaces, or drapery cords hidden under the couch cushions, ready for when he came back.
So the attack itself, it always starts with the light.
The blinding light. He would wake victims up with this heavy-duty flashlight shining right in their eyes. It blinds them, it disorients them, and it hides his face. And then the voice. Through clenched teeth, "Don't move or I'll kill you."
And here's the part that, for me, just defines the cruelty of the East Area Rapist. The dishes.
It's pure psychological torture. He would usually target couples. He would bind the husband first, tie him up tight, then he would go into the kitchen, grab a bunch of plates or teacups, and stack them on the husband's back.
And he'd say, "If I hear them rattle, I'll kill everyone."
Think about the position that puts the husband in. He is listening to his wife being assaulted in the next room, and he wants to scream, he wants to fight, he wants to do anything. But he knows that if he twitches, if a single muscle spasms, and those dishes fall, he signed her death warrant. It weaponized their love against them.
It's total control. It's not just physical dominance, it's mental. He's forcing the husband to be a participant in his own torture.
And he would stay for hours. This wasn't a 20-minute assault. He would raid the fridge. He would drink their beer. He would eat their leftovers.
Well, they are tied up in the bedroom.
Yes, it's this leisurely dominance. He's saying, "This is my house now. You are just objects in it for my entertainment."
There are so many victims in this phase, over 50 attacks, but there are a few moments that really highlight who he was. Victim number 10, Chris Pedretti, she was only 15.
December 1976, and this is where we get the title of Michelle McNamara's famous book about the case. He told her, Do what I say or I'll kill you and be gone in the dark. He saw himself as this phantom. He took pride in the ability to just vanish.
And then there's the Bonnie incident. This one feels like a slip-up, like a crack in the facade.
It's a huge psychological tell. During an attack in 1978, the victim heard him crying, sobbing. He kept saying, "I hate you, Bonnie. I hate you, Bonnie."
And at the time, the police must have been thinking, who on earth is Bonnie?
Exactly. They looked into it, but it's a common name. There was no way to narrow it down. But now, looking back, we know exactly who Bonnie is. Bonnie Jean Colwell. She was DeAngelo's fiancée back in 1971.
This is before he was a cop.
Right, they were at Sierra College together.
Yeah.
But she broke off the engagement because he was controlling. He was abusive. He'd helped her cheat on tests and then held it over her head. He once threatened her with a gun to force her to marry him.
Classic abuser behavior. If I can't have you, no one can.
That's the mindset. When she finally left him, he was devastated in the most angry, narcissistic way possible. And think about the timeline. That was 1971. This attack was 1978. 7 years later, he is still projecting his hatred of Bonnie onto these innocent women.
It suggests that every single attack was a reenactment of that rejection. He was punishing Bonnie over and over and over again.
Punishment is a word that comes up a lot with him. It's absolutely central to his psychology.
We'll get to that with the map later, but the violence in Sacramento eventually hit a breaking point. The Maggiore murders.
February 1978. This was an anomaly for the ER phase because it was a double homicide outdoors. Brian and Katie Maggiore were walking their dog in Rancho Cordova. They likely spotted him prowling, or maybe he confronted them. We don't really know.
And he chased them down?
Chased them through a backyard and shot them both. This proved that the East Area Rapist wasn't just a sexual predator. He was willing to kill to protect his identity. And then, just like in Visalia, the heat got too hot.
So he vanishes. The attacks in Sacramento stop. And suddenly, a new monster appears in Southern California. The original Night Stalker.
It's 1979. He moves south. Santa Barbara, Ventura, Orange County. And the MO shifts again. He's no longer leaving witnesses behind.
This is the descent into darkness. The original Night Stalker phase is purely about homicide.
Well, sexual assault is still the vehicle, but murder is the destination. The first confirmed attack here is the Offerman and Manning murders in Goleta. Dr. Offerman and Dr. Manning.
And again, the callousness. The source says he ate the leftover Christmas turkey from their fridge,
while two people lay dead in the bedroom. It's that compartmentalization. He can switch from killer to guy having a snack in seconds. It shows a complete and utter lack of empathy. To him, they aren't people. They are just props in his movie.
There's a piece of evidence from the Smith murders in 1980 that I want to drill down on, the diamond knot.
This is crucial. Charlene and Lyman Smith were found bound with a very specific, intricate knot called a diamond knot.
I looked this up. This isn't a granny knot. You don't accidentally tie a diamond knot.
No, not at all. It's a decorative nautical knot. It's used on boats for things like lanyards or handles. It requires training and practice to tie, especially under pressure. You have to weave the strands in a very specific pattern.
And DeAngelo had that training.
He was in the Navy. He served on the USS Canberra and the USS Piedmont during Vietnam. And his specific job, damage controlman.
Damage controlman, that sounds like firefighting, patching holes, that kind of thing.
It is. It's emergency repair. It involves heavy rigging, knot tying, working in high-stress, chaotic environments. It's the perfect skill set for restraining people quickly and effectively. The diamond knot was a fingerprint of his past, but at the time, investigators couldn't link it to a specific sailor. There were thousands of Navy vets in California.
And the brutality just keeps ramping up. The Harrington murders in 1980, the bludgeoning was severe. It feels like he was getting angrier.
The rage was absolutely escalated, but then we hit the Great Silence. He kills in 1981, and then nothing, for 5 years, until 1986, the murder of Janelle Cruz.
5 years is a long time. What was he doing for 5 years?
That's the multi-million-dollar mystery. Usually, serial killers don't just stop, they burn out, they get caught, or they die. But DeAngelo, he was just living. He was raising his daughters, he was working.
Let's talk about that work. Because we skipped over his professional demise. He stopped being a cop in 1979.
Right. And this story it's almost comical if it weren't so dark. He was fired from the Auburn Police Department for shoplifting.
A cop?
And not just like a candy bar. He was caught stealing a hammer and a can of dog repellent.
A hammer and dog repellent? That is literally a burglary kit.
Exactly. He wasn't stealing for profit. He was stealing tools for his hobby. He was equipping himself for the next attack. When he was caught, he didn't just apologize. He went into a frenzy. He faked a heart attack in the store,
Faked a heart attack.
collapsed on the floor, clutching his chest.
Yeah.
But the doctors found nothing wrong with him. It was another performance, just like with Detective McGowan, but it got him fired. And here is where the punishment theme returns. He threatened to kill the police chief who fired him.
He really does not handle rejection well at all.
No. And after he lost the badge, he eventually became a truck mechanic for a supermarket chain, Save Mart. And that's where he stayed for 27 years.
Just a guy fixing trucks. A guy with a wife and 3 kids.
Sharon Huddle, his wife, she was a divorce attorney. By all accounts, she had no idea about any of it.
How do you not know? Your husband is out all night.
He had excuses. I'm working late. I'm going pheasant hunting. And apparently they slept in separate rooms for years. He was a very angry man at home, though.
Right, the neighbors called him the neighbor from hell.
Yeah. He wasn't the quiet introvert. He was the guy screaming at 2 in the morning. One neighbor said DeAngelo called him and threatened to deliver a load of death because his dog was barking.
Deliver a load of death? That is not normal suburban conflict resolution.
That's a slip of the mask. But again, being a jerk doesn't make you a serial killer in the eyes of your neighbors.
Yeah.
They just thought he was a grumpy old veteran.
And while he was playing grumpy neighbor, he was also playing these mind games with the victims. The phone calls continued for decades.
This is just the stuff of nightmares. He would call victims years after the attacks. In 1977, he calls a victim and whispers, "Merry Christmas, it's me again."
But the one that gets me is the call in 2001. That is 25 years after his first attacks in Sacramento.
He calls a victim and says, "Remember when we played?"
He's an old man at this point, and he's still feeding off that fear.
It shows that the compulsion never went away. Even if the physical attacks stopped, the psychological need to dominate was still there, simmering.
There was also the Excitement's Crave poem sent to the press. To make a movie of my life that will pay for my planned exile. So narcissistic.
It reads like bad high school poetry, but it reveals his narcissism perfectly. He thought he was the star of a dark thriller. But the most revealing document was the homework papers found in 1978.
These were papers that were found dropped near a crime scene.
Likely dropped by him, yes. It included an essay called Mad is the Word. And it's his rant about hating 6th grade, hating his teacher, being forced to write sentences as punishment.
I cried because I was ashamed. My hand felt every horrid pain. It sounds so petulant, so childish.
It's Arrested Development. He's a grown man, or a young adult, still stewing over a 6th grade punishment. It confirms that he is a collector of grudges. And on the back of a map found with that essay, the word punishment was scrawled.
So we have the profile, we have the crimes, we have the neighbor from hell. But for 40 years, the police have nothing but a DNA profile.
They knew the ER and the ONS were the same guy thanks to DNA testing in 2001. But they didn't know his name. His DNA wasn't in CODIS.
We hear about CODIS on every crime show. That's the FBI database, right? Why wasn't he in it?
CODIS works on a specific principle, exact matching. It's 1-to-1. You have to have been arrested for a felony and swagged by law enforcement. DeAngelo had never been arrested for a felony. The shoplifting was a minor charge, and back then they weren't swabbing shoplifters for DNA. So to the system, he was invisible.
So if he isn't in the database is useless.
Precisely. It's like looking for a book in a library that hasn't been written yet. But then came Paul Holes, an investigator who refused to let this go. And in 2018, they decided to try something radical: genetic genealogy.
This is the part that changed everything. But we need to explain how this is different from CODIS. They used a site called GEmatch.
Right, GEmatch is a public database. It's not for cops. It's for people who want to build their family trees. You upload your DNA, and it tells you, hey, this user is your 3rd cousin.
So the investigators uploaded the Golden State Killer's DNA, pretending it was just a regular user.
Yes, and they didn't find him. They found distant relatives, 3rd and 4th cousins.
A 3rd cousin is pretty far removed. That's like what, sharing a great-great-grandparent?
Exactly. So they had to build a family tree, and this wasn't quick. They had to go back to the 1800s, find the common ancestors, let's say a couple who lived in 1850, and then trace every single descendant of that couple forward to the present day.
That must have been thousands of people.
It was about 1,000 people on the tree, a massive logic puzzle. They had to look at every branch and just prune it.
How do you prune it?
You look at the profile of the killer. We know he's male. So you eliminate all the female branches. We know he was born between 1940 and 1950 based on his age during the crimes. So you eliminate anyone born in the 80s or the 20s. We know he lived in California. So you eliminate the cousins who lived in New York their whole lives.
It's a process of elimination, just whittling down the forest until you have one tree standing.
And eventually they landed on a branch that contained Joseph James DeAngelo. He was the right age. He lived in the right places. Exeter, Auburn, Citrus Heights, and the kicker. He was a former cop.
But they couldn't just knock on his door and say, "Hey, are you the Golden State Killer?"
No. They needed his DNA to confirm. So they set up surveillance on his house in Citrus Heights. They watched him.
And the capture feels like something out of a movie. They watched him go to his store.
They swabbed the door handle of his car while he was inside. It was a partial match. Not enough for court, but enough to know they had the right guy. Then, to be 100% sure, they dug a tissue out of his trash can outside his house.
That was the nail in the coffin.
100% match. April 2018. The SWAT team moves in.
And where is the monster? Is he in a bunker? Is he armed to the teeth?
He's standing in his driveway. He looks like a bewildered old man. He told officers he had a roast in the oven.
A roast. It's so mundane, so normal.
But that's the banality of evil. He was just a grandpa making dinner. But once they got it into the interrogation room, the mask slipped again.
This is where we hear about Jerry.
DeAngelo was left alone in the room, but the cameras were rolling. He started pacing and muttering to himself. He said, "I didn't have the strength to push him out. He's a part of me. I pushed Jerry out and had a happy life."
Who is Jerry?
He was implying a split personality, that Jerry was the killer and Joe was the innocent man.
Do we buy that? Or is this just another faking a heart attack?
The prosecutors didn't buy it for a second. It looked like he was setting up an insanity defense. It wasn't me, it was the voice in my head. But he's a manipulator. He's been acting his whole life. He acted like a cop. He acted like a neighbor. He acted like a victim with McGowan. Jerry was just another role.
He never got to use that defense in court, though.
No. The sheer volume of the case. It would have cost $20 million and taken 10 years to try. The victims were getting older. Some had already passed away. They wanted closure, not a media circus. So in June 2020, he took a plea deal.
He pleaded guilty to everything.
13 murders. 13 kidnappings. The kidnapping charges were a legal workaround because the statute of limitations had run out on the rapes. But as part of the deal, he had to admit to all the uncharged crimes, too.
He had to sit in a ballroom because the courtroom was too small for all the victims and listen to the prosecutors describe every single rape, every single murder.
And then he had to listen to the victims. Days and days of impact statements. Women he had terrorized 40 years ago stood up and looked him in the eye.
And he just sat there.
Stone-faced. He looked like this frail old man in a wheelchair. But many believe the frail act was just that, an act, until the very end. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he stood up.
He stood up.
He stood up. And in this raspy old voice, he said, "I've listened to all your statements. I'm truly sorry to everyone I've hurt."
Truly sorry. Does a psychopath feel sorry?
Probably not. It felt like one last attempt to control the narrative, to be the polite one in the room. But it didn't matter. The judge gave him multiple consecutive life sentences. He will die in prison.
It's a heavy ending. But there is a silver lining here. The legacy of this case isn't just the trauma, it's the solution.
Absolutely. This case blew the door open for genetic genealogy. Since DeAngelo was caught, that same technique has solved hundreds of cold cases. Murders from the 70s, 80s, 90s are being solved every week now because of the precedent set here.
It basically ended the era of the anonymous serial killer. You can't just leave DNA and hope you aren't in the system, because your cousin is in the system.
Exactly. You can't hide anymore. The family tree will find you.
But before we go, there's one thing that keeps nagging at me. The gap and the retirement.
It's the scariest part of the whole story.
DeAngelo stopped killing in 1986. He was arrested in 2018. That is 32 years of normal life. He was your mechanic. He was the guy in line at the grocery store. He went to work, came home, watched TV.
It forces us to ask a very, very uncomfortable question. We like to think monsters look like monsters. We like to think they burn out or get caught. But DeAngelo proves that a prolific serial killer can just retire.
So how many others are out there?
How many grandfathers are sitting in their living rooms right now, watching the news, knowing what they did in 1975, thinking they got away with it because they pushed Jerry out?
DeAngelo thought he won until the future knocked on his door.
And for the rest of them, the science is coming.
On that chilling note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Thank you for listening.